Hello everyone, welcome back to Genius Knowledge Point, your one place for practical programming solutions for computer and IT students. I am making this video to provide practical knowledge to all students so that you can develop your own programs which will be helpful for your studies as well as career. In this video we will see practical number 26 of Java programming, which is according to case scheme of Diploma Computer and IT students, and semester number is 4. The topic in this video is to demonstrate sending and receiving data through datagrams. So in previous practical we have seen the communication using TCP, that is transmission control protocol, which is also called as connection oriented communication. So in that practical we have seen that the communication is happening between client and server. So the one machine which is serving the data or serving the services, that is called a server system, and another machine is called a client machine which is requesting for particular service. So in server side what we were doing, we are just opening a connection, we are creating one connection and we are opening a port number which is called a listening process, and whenever any client send request to that port number, the connection is made between client and server is sending data to the client. So this is how the TCP communication happens, and it is called connection oriented communication because there is a continuous connection between client and server once it is made, and that connection remains until the connection is closed by our program. So this is how the TCP communication happens. There is one more type of communication, that is called user datagram protocol, which is called UDP, and that we will cover in this practical, which is done through datagrams. So that's why it is called user datagram protocol. So for that purpose we have to first understand how UDP communication is happening. So for that purpose we will go to the diagram. So this is how the UDP communication happens. So in case of UDP communication, there is no client or there is no server. So both the machines are having same properties because they are just sending data to each other. There is no particular client machine or there is no particular server machine. Both the machines are just sending data to other machine or other program using its address and port number, which is called IP address and port number. Similarly, the other party or the other program will send the data to the first program using its IP address and port number. So this is how the communication happens. So that's why it is called sender and receiver type of programming. There is no client and server. The program or the system which is sending data is called sender, and another machine which is receiving the data is called receiver. At the same time, receiver will send the data to the sender, and that will happen continuously. So this is how the communication happens, and there is no connection oriented protocol here because there is no continuous connection. You are just sending data according to your use, and the data is sent to the receiver according to that connection for that specific connectivity only. So there is no continuous connection like TCP communication. This is how the UDP happens or UDP protocol works. So we will move to the first question of practical related questions. So the first question is, write a program using DatagramPacket and DatagramSocket to create chat application. So again, as we have seen in previous practical, we have to create a chatting application here, but this time we have to use UDP here. We are not going to use TCP here. And for UDP we have two classes. One class is DatagramPacket, which will be handling the data, and another class is DatagramSocket, which will be creating connection to the other system. So this is how these two classes are responsible for creating data and sending the data. So for that purpose again we will go to the diagram. So as I have said earlier, there is no sender, there is no client or server here. So the system which is sending message, that will be called sender, and the system which is receiving the message, which will be called a receiver. So again, as we have seen in previous practical, we have to use two types of communication here, that is sending the message, at the same time we are going to receive the message. So for that purpose we are going to use threads here again. So receiving part will be handled by thread, and that will be the continuous checking of whether the data is received or not, and sending message will be happening inside our main program. So similarly on the other side we will be having receiving thread, which will be receiving the data from first party or first program, and that will be continuous loop for receiving the data, and for sending we will be doing coding inside our main program. But additionally what we need here, we have to create a particular system, or suppose the first program is sender program. We have to create that sender program with particular IP address and particular port number. So this is how the Datagram socket will be created. We will be creating using the IP address and particular port number, and on the other side we will be creating another IP and another port number. So while sending the data from sender to receiver, what we will do, we will mention the IP address of receiver and port number of receiver, so that the data will send to that receiver automatically. And on the receiver side we will do the reverse process. That means we will use the IP address of sender and port number of sender, so that our data will send to the sender automatically. So this is how the communication happens, and there is no continuous communication. The data will be sent in the form of packets, which is handled using DatagramPacket class, and the data is randomly sent in the network, and according to the IP address and port number it will be received at the receiver. Similarly the reverse process will happen. So this is how the structure of the program will be. So now moving toward the question. So first we have to create a sender class or the sender program which will be sending the data, and next we have to create a receiver program which will be receiving the data, and simultaneously they will communicate with each other like chatting application. So now moving toward the code. So this is the program for chat receiver, that means this is the receiver code. So initially I am taking import statement as java.net, so networking packages and interfaces, classes and interfaces will be taken here. Next I am taking import statement as java.io for input output operations, and next I am taking java.util package because I am going to use scanner here again. So next my class definition starts here. So class chat receiver thread. So this is the thread which I am going to create for receiving the data from the sender, and it is extending the thread class, so automatically it will become a thread. In that I am going to create objects of two classes. One class is DatagramSocket. So as I have said earlier, the socket will be creating connection to other system, and packet will be handling the data. So the first class is DatagramSocket and I am naming it as DS. Next class is DatagramPacket and naming it as DP. So both the objects are created. Then I am creating my constructor as chat receiver thread, DatagramSocket, and passing S as a parameter, and that S value will be copied to DS. So I am initializing DS whichever passed inside the constructor bracket. So this is how our DatagramSocket is created here or initialized here. Next I am creating my public void run function which is inside our thread class. So in that, as we have seen in previous program or previous practical, we have to use while loop for continuously checking whether there is a communication happening or there is a receiving of the message from the sender. So for that purpose I am taking while true. So it is infinite while loop. In that I am taking a try block. In that I am taking a byte array. So whenever we are using DatagramPacket, we have to receive the data or send the data in the form of bytes. So for that purpose I am taking one byte array and assigning it as a size of 500. So the 500 bytes will be stored in that byte array. So at a time you can send 500 bytes in that byte array. Next I am creating the object of DP which we have declared earlier. So DP is equal to new DatagramPacket. In that DatagramPacket we have to mention two parameters. First parameter is your byte array and second parameter is the maximum length. So as our data is having maximum length of 500 bytes, so that's why I have to mention 500 as the second parameter, and the first parameter is the byte array which is created in first step, that is data. So next I am using ds.receive. So ds is the object of DatagramSocket and receive is the function that will receive the data which we have received from the sender. So that data will be received here and that data will be stored into DP, and DP is the DatagramPacket. So the data will be received in the form of packets, and that packets will be storing that data into this byte array which is data array. So this is how our data is received, and that data is received in the byte array in the form of bytes. Now our data is having 500 as a size, but there may be possibility that data received from the message which is received from the sender, that may be of the less size. So that's why we have to use a string message as a variable, and for that message storing we have to use a for loop. And in that for loop, what I am doing, I am taking int I is equal to 0, that is the starting location of array, and data of I is not equal to 0. So as soon as a data inside this data array, or the message or the bytes inside the data array stops, it will become a 0. So that's why I am using this loop, and I am using I++. So from the starting location which is 0 till the data is received, or the size of the data is having value. So this is how the data byte array will be storing the data, and I am writing message plus is equal to. So whatever the data is inside, whatever the value is inside this data byte array, that will be converted into character, and that value will be stored into message, and that will be concatenated again and again. So all the characters or all the message data which is received inside this byte array, that will be taken using this for loop. That data will be converted into characters, and those characters will be stored into message, and again they will be attached in this message variable. So this is how all the message value will be stored into this message variable, because we have created a byte array of 500 size, and there is possibility that a sender sends the data which is less than 500 bytes. So in that case we have to use this for loop to avoid the extra bytes storing into this message. So that's why this all for loop is done here. Finally, we have to just print the data which we have received. So from sender I am printing this message. So whatever the message is received, that will be printed in front of this string. So finally the try block is completed. Next we have to use a catch block, and in that we have to catch the exception. So I am creating exception object as E as a parameter, and in that I am just printing the message as connection ended. So anything wrong happens or anything abnormal happens with this communication, so what it will do, it will generate an exception automatically. The catch block will run and it will print connection ended. And finally I am printing system.exit 0. As soon as the connection is ended, I have to print, or I have to close the program, because it is inside a continuous while loop. So that's why I have to use system.exit 0. So automatically my program will terminate here. And finally I am using break here. So after exiting we will use break for closing the while loop. So the catch is complete here, then while loop is completed, then run function is completed, and finally thread class is complete here. So this is how our thread is created, which is created for receiving the message. Next I am creating my main class as a chat receiver. In that I am taking main function, then opening main function, then opening try block. In that I am creating DatagramSocket object. So DatagramSocket mySocket is equal to new DatagramSocket, and creating port number or listening port number as 1234. So automatically this socket will be created, which is checking the message on 1234 port number. Next I am creating scanner class object, which is SC. Then I am creating inet address object. Why inet address is needed? Because whenever we are sending the data through DatagramPacket, in that case we need inet address of the another machine where we want to send the data. So for that purpose I am taking inet address object as sender address is equal to inet address dot get localhost. Now in my case I am running both the sender and receiver program on the same machine, so that's why I have taken get localhost. So it will return me the inet address of my current machine. But if you are running both the programs on different machines, so in that case you have to use the inet address object of another machine. So that will be using inet address dot get by name, and you have to assign name inside the string of this constructor. So this is how you will get inet address object of another machine. In my case I am using just localhost, because both the programs will be running on this computer only. Next I am creating one more integer variable as int other port. So as I have said earlier in the diagram, we have to mention the inet address or IP address of another machine and port number of another machine. So this is the other port number which we have created here as 4321. Our port number is 1234, but another machine's port number is 4321. So we will be connecting to this port number using this inet address, and whenever that another machine wants to connect us, it will be using our INET address and 1234 as port number. So this is how the communication will happen here. Next, I am using the object of thread which we have created earlier. So chat receiver thread, th is equal to new chat receiver thread, and in that we have to pass the socket object as our constructor is designed. So I am writing my socket inside the parameter. So automatically this my socket will be copied here and it will be set to ds. So whenever or wherever the ds object is, it will be considered as my socket in our thread class. Next, I am starting the thread because I want to run the thread in the background in continuous loop. So that's why I have started the thread which will be checking whether the message is coming from the sender. So the thread is started. Next, I am creating while loop. Now this time I am sending the message. So for that purpose we have to use a continuous while loop. So it is created here. In that I am taking string variable as message to send. So this is the message we want to send as a reply to the sender. So this is the message to send, and I am using sc.next line. So in this line we will be accepting data from the user, and that will be stored into message to send. Next, this message to send data is in the form of string, but as I have said earlier, we have to use bytes in the form of packets. So for that purpose what we have to do, we have to convert this message to send in bytes. So for that purpose I am taking byte array as a send buffer. This is the byte array name is equal to message to send dot get byte. So automatically the data inside this message to send, which is in the form of string, that will be converted to bytes, and those bytes will be stored into this send buffer. So this is how our data is stored into send buffer in the form of bytes. Next, I am creating the object of datagram packet. So as we have to send the data using packets, so for that purpose we have to create datagram packet object as a datagram is equal to new datagram packet. Now I am sending the data. So while sending the data you have to specify 4 parameters. While receiving the data we have used only 2 parameters, that is data and the size of the array. But this time while sending the data we have to specify 4 parameters. First parameter is the byte array, so that is our send buffer object. Then the size of the data which is inside our send buffer byte array. So size is taken in the form of length, so I am using the length function of the array. So automatically the length of the message will be taken here. Next, third parameter is the sender address, which we have created earlier as a init address object. This is the address of another machine. In my case it is localhost machine. And fourth parameter is the port number of another machine, which we have created earlier as 4321. So my sender machine is having port number as 4321 and receiver machine is having port number as 1234. So this is how our datagram packet object is created, which is having buffer, then size of the data, then init address of another machine and port number of another machine. Now using my socket object I am just using send function to send the data, and I am writing datagram as our parameter. So what it will do, it will just send the datagram through the my socket, and automatically datagram is having all the properties. It is having data, it is having length of data, it is having IP address and port number. So automatically that will be sent to the second machine or another machine. So this is how our data is sent here. Next, I am checking inside if condition if the message to send dot equals ignore case by. So as we have seen in previous practical, we were checking whether the message is exit. So in this case I am checking whether the message is by. If the message is by, I am breaking the while loop and I am closing the socket here. So if the message is by, automatically the while loop will break and I am going to next statement as my socket dot close. So automatically the socket connection will close here and it will stop the program. Next, I am using catch if anything happens. So we have to use a catch block. In that catch block I am taking exception e as a parameter and I am using e.print stack trace. So automatically it will give me the exception detail using proper tracing. So this is how the catch is also completed and the main function is completed, and finally the class is completed. So this is how our receiver class is complete here. So I am just copying the class name to compile. So in case of sender program, if you see the same coding will be there. So I am going to sender program coding. If you see the same coding is there, Just the difference is I am changing the port number while creating my socket object, that is 4321, and the INET address is same as a localhost. So there is only one change in the sender program. The rest of the program coding is same as the receiver program, because both the programs are same. They are just working as the same program. They are just sending messages to each other. There is no client and server here. So I am just changing the port number here while creating my Datagram socket object. I am assigning port number as 4321. So this is the 4321 port number for sender, and in case of receiver we have assigned the port number as 1234. So while connecting to sender we will set the other port as 4321 here, and while connecting to receiver we will set the other port as 1234 here. So this is the only difference in between both the programs. Rest of the coding is same in both the programs because they are working same. They are just sending messages to each other. So this is how the sender coding will be. So I am just saving the code. To run the program we have to again open two CMDs here, because both the programs will run simultaneously using different CMDs. So I am going to the location. First I am opening CMD here. So first command is javac space class name, that is chat receiver dot java. So after entering there is no error, that means program is compiled successfully. Now to run this program I just have to write the command java and chat receiver. So after entering nothing will happen because it is not a server, it is not a client, it is just a normal machine which has started a communication. So as soon as I type any message it will be sent to the another system, but for that purpose we have to start another system. So for that purpose I am again going to the sender program, then I am copying the class name because I want to compile the program. Again going to the location, opening another CMD here. First command is javac chat sender dot java. So there is no error, that means program is compiled successfully. Now I am just running the program using java space chat sender. So this is started, and also the previous CMD chat receiver program is also started, but nothing is happening here because no one has sent message to another system. So I am just typing hello here. So if you can see, the hello message is typed and I have pressed enter. On the sender side it has received the hello message because it has sent the data in the form of packets, and it has received the data in the form of packets, and it has printed the data. Now I am sending hi from the sender. So it has received from sender hi as a message. So whatever the message we are typing here, that will be sent to another machine, and even on the other side if you are writing any message, that will be sent to the first machine. So this is how the communication is happening in both the systems. To break the communication you just have to type bye, so automatically the connection will close and we will return to the CMDs. So I am just typing bye now on the sender machine. So typing bye and pressing enter. So it has displayed as connection ended, and it has returned to the CMD or commands. But in the receiver side it has not done anything because it is still checking for the communication. It is not a client, it is not a server, it is just a normal machine which is checking for any other system. So even if you start another CMD and start this chat sender and send messages, they will be received here because it is still working as a chat receiver. So for that purpose, to stop the program we have to type bye. So again it has printed connection ended and it has also stopped here. So this is how we can create a chatting application using UDP. And in case of chatting application of UDP, there is no client or server system. They are just acting as a normal system, sending message to each other using each other's IP address and port number. So this is how this chatting application is completed. And the question number 1 is completed, which was regarding creation of chatting application using Datagram protocol or Datagrams. Now let us see the second question. Write a program using DatagramPacket and DatagramSocket to copy the contents of one file into another. Again we have to use a Datagrams here, so we will be using UDP here. And what we have to do here, we have to copy the content of one file into another file. So on the client side we have to create one file, and from that file we have to copy the content, we have to send that content to the server, and on the server side we have to take that content and we have to store that content into another file. So this is how the copy process will happen. So we are copying the content from the client side from one file and we are storing that content on another file which is on the server side. So this is how the communication will happen here. So for that purpose, first we have to see the diagram. So this is how the structure of the program will be. First we have to create a client side program, and on client side we have to create a file which will be having some data in the form of any text or any other data, and that file will be stored on the client side, and that file content will be taken into client program. So for that purpose, first step in client program is read data from file. So it will be reading the data from file, and for that purpose we have to use the file handling operations which are not actually covered inside our syllabus of MSBT, but still as it is inside our practicals. So for that purpose we have to see those classes and interfaces here. So we will be reading the data using file classes, then we will be send that data using our connection, that will be our Datagram connection. So we will be using DatagramPacket and DatagramSocket to send that data to the server side. And on the server side what will happen, the first step is to read the data which is sent from the client side. So it will receive the data, and from that data it will send the data or send the data inside that file, or it will send the data to the file which will be stored on the server side. So this is how the connection or the process will happen here, and it is a one-way communication only. There is no reply from server. So the client is just sending the data to the server which is taken from the file, and server just taking the data and storing it into the file on the server. So this is how the one-way communication will happen here. So the structure of the program is covered here. So now moving toward the question again, we have to use the DatagramPacket and DatagramSocket classes again. So we will see the coding directly. So initially I am doing coding for server side. So initially I am importing java.net package because this is the networking program, so we have to use the .NET package. Then I am using import statement as java.io.star for handling input output operations, related classes and interfaces. Next I am creating my class definition as public class server file. So this is the server side program, so that's why I am naming it server file. Then in that I am taking main function public static void main string args and directly applying exception handling to main function. That's why using throws IO exception, or you can use exception only. So this is how I am applying exception handling to the complete main function using throws keyword. Next I am creating an object of byte array. So byte b is equal to new byte, and size I am taking as 3072. So this is the random number I have taken. So this is the size of my byte array. Then to send the data we have to use, or to receive the data we have to use DatagramSocket class. So DatagramSocket ds is equal to new DatagramSocket, and I am listening on port number 9999. So this is the port number where I am receiving my data from the client machine. Next I am just printing the message as server is running. Next I am taking file output stream class. So as I have said in the diagram, so we have to take the data from client, we have to store the data into our program, and the data should be stored in the form of file. So for that purpose we have to use file output stream class object. So file output stream f is equal to new file output stream, and in the parameter we have to pass the file name in the form of string. So this is the file name which will be created on the server side, which will be storing the data which we have taken from client side. So server file.txt is my file name where I am storing my data after receiving. So next I am creating object of DatagramPacket. To receive the packets we have to create this object. So new DatagramPacket, in that parameter we have to pass, first parameter is the byte array which is b, and second parameter is the size of that array, that is 3072. So maximum 3072 data or maximum 3072 bytes we can store in this DatagramPacket. Next I am using receive function of ds. So socket.receive packet. So this is how ds.receive dp, we are calling the receive function. Automatically the data will be received in the form of packet, and that data will be stored in the byte array. Next I am using f.write dp.getData. So the data inside packet that will be fetched using this getData function, and that data will be returned to F, and F is the object of file output stream which is connected to server file.txt. So automatically the data which we have taken, that will be returned to this server file.txt using this statement. And how much data we want to write? We have to write from the starting location, which is 0, till dp.getLength. So the data which we have received, that will be stored in the DP packet. And how much data will be stored? That data value will be taken into dp.getLength. So the size will be taken into dp.getLength. So that much data we have to write into our file. Otherwise we will be writing extra bytes, because our byte array is having bigger size. The total is having 3072 bytes. So all the data will be returned to server file.txt, which we don't want. We want just the data which are residing inside our DP, that is packet. We don't want unnecessary blank bytes. That's why this size is taken here. So finally I am writing the message as data saved to file. So this is the server side programming. Main function is complete and class is also completed. So server is taking the data from client, then it is storing the data into server file.txt using file output stream class. Next, going to the client side program. So initially I am taking as an import statement java.net. Next I am importing java.io for input output operations. Next I am creating the class definition as public class client file. So this is the client side program. Next, creating main function, throwing exception, so throws exception, applying exception handling to entire main function. Then again I am creating variable of byte, which is byte array, and again taking byte array as having size 1024 bytes. So total this number of bytes can be stored into this B value. Next I am taking a ch as integer variable. So this is taken for reading the data from file. Next I am writing the message as client started. Then taking file input stream class object. Now this is the client program and it is reading data from the file which is residing on the client system. So for reading the data we have to use this file input stream class, and in that class constructor we have to pass the file name, which is client file.txt. So this is how this file will be present on the client machine, which we have to create already. Then only this program will run, otherwise it will throw an exception, because the file, if the file is not present, it will generate an exception. So for that purpose we have to create this file before running our client program. So this is how the file is taken. Then I am creating object of DatagramSocket, which is ds is equal to new DatagramSocket. So this will be the socket, and using this socket we will be sending the data. Then I am taking int I is equal to 0. So this I is taken for incrementing operator or incrementing value only. So in that again I am starting a while loop, while ch is equal to f.read. So what is ch? Ch is integer variable that will be reading the data from file, and that data will be stored into ch in the form of integer. And if this value is not equal to -1, so when this read function will return -1 when there is an end of characters inside our files. So as soon as our file data ended, it will return -1 and we will move out of the while loop. So that's why this loop is taken here, while ch is equal to f.read. So we are reading the data, storing the data into ch variable, and at the same time we are checking whether it is -1. So if it is not -1, we will go inside the while loop, and in while loop what I am taking? I am taking b of I is equal to byte and ch. So what it will do? It will convert this ch value, which is in integer format, that will be converted into byte format. We have used typecasting here. So the byte will be converted and that value will be stored into byte array's ith location. So this is how our data will be stored inside byte array using 1 by 1 location, and at the same time we are incrementing I variable. So we will be moved to the next location. So this is how each character from our file will be read into ch, that will be converted into bytes, and that character will be stored into b array, and similarly we will move to the next array value. This is how all the characters will be stored into this b array, and I++ will be storing the total number of characters because it is incrementing according to our reading function. So total number of characters we have got, that will be considered as size. Then we have got the byte array, which is storing all the bytes of our data. So this is how the while loop is complete. And after while loop I am using ds.send. So this is the socket object I'm using send function of this socket object, and in that what we have to pass? We have to pass the packet object. So I'm creating a dynamic packet object as new datagram packet, and in that constructor I am passing 4 parameters as we have seen in previous program. So first parameter is the byte array, which is B. Then second parameter is the size, total number of bytes which we want to send. So this is the I variable, because we have incremented I according to the number of characters. So the I variable will be storing the size of that characters or the total number of characters. Next, third parameter is the IP address or the INET address of the another machine. So in my case I am using localhost, so I am using INET address dot get localhost only. So automatically it will be sending data to my own machine, but it will be sending on port number 9999. So this is how we have used the sending of the packet, and in sending packet we have to use 4 parameters, while receiving packet we have to use 2 parameters only. So that's why in server file we have seen that we have used 2 parameters only, that is B and size of the array. This is how the data is sent, which is having all the characters from this client file.txt, and all the file characters will be converted into bytes, and those bytes are sent in the form of packets to the server. And finally, after sending data, I am closing this connection and I am closing the file object. So f.close is done here. So I am closing the file which we have created earlier, and finally I am writing system.out.println find data sent to the server. So at this statement, or lastly, we have printed the message that our data is sent to server. So the main function is complete here and class is also complete here. Saving the code. So to run the program, what we have to do? We have to run server first, and we have to create this client file.txt. So for that purpose I have already created it. So I am just opening it using notepad. If you see, this is the content inside my client file.txt. So this is client file, content of this file will be copied to server. At server, new file will be created and saved. End of file. So these are the characters which I have stored inside my client file.txt file. So I am closing this file which I already stored inside the same folder where my program is. So to run the program, first we have to open CMD. So opening CMD, first we will be compiling and running the server program. So for that purpose I am going to notepad, copying the class name which is server file. So first command is javac space class name dot java. So there is no error, that means program is compiled successfully. Directly running the program, java space server file. So it has printed the message as server is running. So the next step is to run the client file. So for that purpose we have to open another CMD. So again going to the location, opening CMD here, writing command as javac space client file dot java. After entering, there is no error. Next command is java space client file only. So after running this program, what will happen? The client file will read the data in the form of bytes, and those bytes will be sent to the server, and server will read those bytes, and those bytes will be copied to another file which is saved on the server. So I am just pressing enter now. So the client has started. This is the first message. Then file data sent to server. So this is how our data is sent to the server, which is the last message inside our program. File data is sent to the server. So all the statements have run properly. Data is sent to the server. On server side, nothing will happen. We will just see the printing of data saved to file message, because there is no data printed here. The data is sent to the file. So for that seeing output, what you have to do? You have to go to the location and see whether the server file is created here. If you see, the server file is created just now. So this is the timing, the current timing. So this file is just created after running my client program. So if I open the file, you can see the same content is visible inside this server file.txt, which is this content. This is the client file, and all the data from the client file is copied as it is inside this server file.txt. So this is how what we have done in this program. We have taken one file which was stored in the client file, then we have copied the data from client file to our program, then from program we have sent that data in the form of bytes to the server, and server is already running in background. So this is how we have copied the data from one file from the client machine we have sent the data to the server machine, and from server machine we have saved that data on the server file.txt. So this is how we have copied the content of one file into another using our DatagramPacket and DatagramSocket classes. So this is how the second question is completed. And if you see the third question, the same program can be done here, which is similar to second question. Write a program using DatagramPacket and DatagramSocket to transfer the file from one location to another. So you can do the same program as question number 2, because the same content is present here in this question number 3, because we just have to again transfer the file content from one location to another, which we have already covered in question number 2. So I am not going to create the code for this question number 3. So this is how our practical number 26 is completed. What we have seen here, we have seen to create a chatting application using Datagrams. So we have created chatting application like creating sender and receiver classes, and using those classes we have made communication in between as a chatting application. The continuous communication was there as a real world chatting application. And in the second question, we have copied the content from one location to another location, or we have copied the content from client location to server location into the file. So this is how this practical number 26 is completed. Also the practicals of networking are completed here. So from the next practical we will see how to handle database inside Java. So this is how the practical is ended here. So that's it for today's practical. I hope you understand the program clearly. If you found this video useful, don't forget to like, share and subscribe to my channel for more such programming solutions, and hit the bell icon so you never miss a new video. If you have any doubts or need solutions for other programs, drop a comment below. I will be happy to help. Thanks for watching and happy coding.